It's Fully Threaded Radio, episode 220.
Whoever drove that week, so it was a week session between each driver, and Bruce would have KFI on, drive me crazy. I already have K-Rock on, driving him crazy. So, and then Dick was pretty mellow. He just wanted the waves. So it was just, three different personalities, but we all got along really, really well. And at the time, you think, oh my God, is this ever going to end? And then now again, as you reflect back, you wish it never would have ended,
This court date is coming up, and the reciprocal tariffs are under fire, and I'm not sure what'll come out of that, but that could change all the numbers again. Every time the numbers change, we all spend a lot of time recomputing costs and sales and going back and forth with customers, and that in itself is a drag on sales and production.
It's weird thinking about this concept of AI, and you think about robots and the Matrix or whatever you think about when you think about computers, people behind their desk, robots writing code. But to support this industry, you have to build these huge data centers. There's going to be a ton of power investment in nuclear, investment in solar, investment in hydroelectric. And what do all those things need, Eric? Our fasteners.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. If you buy, sell, import, distribute, manufacture industrial threaded fasteners, this is the podcast for you. So glad you clicked in. Hi, everybody. Eric Dudas with you again, coming to you from semi-rural Northeast Ohio. And the co-host of Fully Threaded is with us as well. Known as the hardest working man in the online thread game, he's Brian Musker. How you doing, Brian?
Oh, I'm good. I think there's plenty of people who work harder than me in this industry, but I'm doing fine.
Well, the online thread games is kind of a specialty niche, though. You got to admit it.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
And a lot of people working in the shadows. This has become very clear after attending the Vegas show, and I just got back from the IFI conference in Louisville. We'll be talking about that a little bit today. But what I know is that lots of people have lots of ideas on how to harness evolving technology, and they're, they're working, most of them in obscurity. Who knows what will come out as a winner eventually? You're one of them.
Yeah, well, I'm working, I guess, with Sam, working on the idea of expanding the product information part of FCH, the scrubber.
That is a very exciting project you guys are working on, building out that data model to make it even more descriptive. And of course, now in the era of big data, we can do very interesting things with all that. So yeah, that's another thing we'll be talking about quite a bit during upcoming episodes. But on this episode 220 of Fully Threaded Radio, we have plenty to discuss. We're going to kind of stay away from the AI and data subject, which we've been crashing up against quite a bit, because there's so much else going on. And we'll be publishing this time on October 16th, 2025. The feature segment on today's episode is a conversation with Vice President of Purchasing at Stelfast, Mr. Jim Jordan. He reflects on his days learning the ropes of supply chain and inventory control with the late, great Bruce Darling. Bruce is remembered by many as materials manager at Porteous Fasteners. He was very kind to us in our early days, Bri.
Yeah, he was.
And we needed someone to jump on the podcast and say some words about this remarkable fastener man.
He was a fascinating man. And I remember, well, you will very well too, like in early 2007, that the decision from Porteous was so profound that they would try and use the web, that they had to go in front of a board meeting to work out where they could spend $500 with FCH. Remember that?
It's going back a ways, but Bruce helped to push that one through.
Oh, he did. He was a very interesting man.
So this is a great conversation. On the Fastener News Report, Bob GQ Baer joins Mike McNulty. They'll zero in on the latest Fastener Distributor Index numbers, and this time it was another dramatic report because the last 30 days were pretty strong, stronger than a lot of people expected, yet the forward-looking indicator is a different story. Things might be getting a little rocky. GQ is one of the most thoughtful of all the FDI analysts, and it's a good thing he's on with Mike this time, Bri.
Yeah, you're right.
Handing off to the Fastener News Report, Parker Jensen with Atlas Distribution jumped on. I gave him a crack at explaining the FDI too. Wasn't trying to steal Mike and Bob's thunder, but Parker's out there in the field, and he's always got his take on things, so I gave him a shot.
Okay, good.
He talks to lots of people.
Yep.
On the Fastener Training Minute, Carmen Vertullo talks torque to yield fastening. Could it be the value-added feature your distributor business needs to differentiate yourself? Well, Carmen's going to give you all the details you need to make that choice. Plus, Marco Rodriguez with Cresa has something for us. This time, he discusses buying versus leasing commercial property, which is something every business needs to consider at some point. Marco and the Cresa team are experts in that area. And I point out because he leaves it to the end always in these little updates, Bri. Marco's very easy to find on LinkedIn. That's his preferred contact method. Marco Rodriguez, very phonetic. Get out there on LinkedIn, look him up. He's with Cresa. He knows real estate, and he knows the fastener industry too, because he had an interesting career path coming out of the fastener world into the real estate world. So he's one of us, but he'll talk to you about all these issues. If all that isn't enough and not AI related for you folks, we're going to kick off this predominantly fastener related melange with a quick interview I did with IFI chairman Larry Spelman during their fall conference in Louisville. That happened just a couple of days ago. A very successful conference. I'm so glad I went. More on that in a minute.
Cool.
It is, as is our list of partners. They keep us going. They enable us to bring everything we do to the fastener industry. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio, Brighton Best International. Tested, tried, true, Brighton Best. Goebel Fasteners. Quality the first time. Go Goebel. And Star Stainless. Right off the shelf, it's Star. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company. BTM Manufacturing. Eurolink Fastener Supply Service. Cresa, Endries International, InSequel Software, J-Land Franco, Fastener Technology International, MW Components, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. I very much appreciate several IFI conference attendees who approached me during that event and thanked us, Bri, mainly you, of course, but thanked us for
You're right. Right.
the FCH platform and all that. And let's face it, we'll take messages any way we can get them.
Right.
The email address is ftr@fullythreaded.com. And like Marco Rodriguez, Brian and I are both out on LinkedIn.
Eric more so than me, but I'm scanning it, okay?
You're more of a lurker. Everyone knows
I'm
that
a lurker.
by now,
Yeah,
right?
I am really. Yeah.
And Lynn's not even out there.
She opens it up and looks through it occasionally.
I don't think she has an account, Bri.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
That's how cool she is. So she's like Bruce Wheeler, you know, so cool. They don't even need a LinkedIn account.
Right.
All right. On the subject of coolness, and before we cut to a quick break, I want to point out that we have attempted to upgrade. Well, I don't think we've just attempted. I think we are upgrading the Fully Threaded Radio podcast web experience, building in some new features that have been needed for a long time, really. But we're doing that, and we're consolidating because it was a little schizophrenic for years. We had these two web pages, and now we've consolidated it into one, and mostly it's a step forward, but we did break a couple of things as we're moving ahead. So I just want to caution everybody that if you get out there and you get some crazy message, I don't know what we broke. We're going to figure that out. You could still get to the site. Everything's safe. Everything is SSL enabled, as I understand it, but
yeah.
something is still a little off. We've got the admin team trying to smooth all that out. But one of the great advantages of this new framework that we're using, Bri, is we're going to be able to provide a lot more additional info for every episode. That's going to make each show more valuable. It's going to bring more, I think, relevance to every episode and a lot more partner value, which is one of our biggest objectives in doing this, of course.
Right. Yeah, because now our sponsors and partners have a dedicated page, each one of them, which has been wanting for a long time, but it wasn't until we got a sort of newer platform to set everything on that we could really do that. So I think it's good, very good, actually. Have a look at it. Go and have a look.
Of course, a lot of folks listen to the podcast on their iPhones through the Apple Podcast app. Some listen through Spotify. It's the usual hodgepodge these days. There's not just one platform that everybody uses, so it's just the way of the podcast world these days. However you're listening to this, though, thanks very much. And there's new listeners hopping on all the time, so I guess we're going to need to backtrack. It also makes me feel not as bad that we're still using some of the same bumpers that we've had for many years. I got some new ones of those coming too, though, Bri.
Good. Good.
Long-suffering, fully threaded audience members.
Yeah,
Stay with us, will you? I know they're gonna, because we have some great features coming up on this episode and going forward.
Right.
And one more thing before we do take that quick break. Got a message from Craig Penland, longtime partner of the podcast.
Yep.
He's involved with an organization called Jumpstart Vision, and they have a very important mission. Craig is right on board with it, and he was interviewed recently. I'm going to make sure that there's a link in the aforementioned show notes that we're now going to be doing for this episode so that you can get out there and see this interview or read it. But Jumpstart works with newly released convicts and helps to get them straightened out, helps to give them a path.
Oh, that's very cool.
It really is. It takes a special kind of individual to see the need for that and to have the courage to get involved. People who know Craig and really the whole Eurolink team know that he's a deeply committed person. Just read a little quote in here that drives that idea home. This is from this interview on jumpstartvision.org. Craig said, "Second chances, none of us deserves them, but God gives them anyway. If he offers us a second chance, who am I not to do the same for others?" As you can imagine, there's lots of example in this short interview that Craig did. I just want to point it out because we're proud to be associated with Craig, and the fastener industry in general is filled with people doing all kinds of things like this. Most of you know about the Sleep in Heavenly Peace bed build project that the Parker Fasteners guys, the BTM guys, and lots of others brought to us, and that's expanded so well. Craig's also involved with that, of course, but he's doing a lot of things, as are many people in the industry. So just wanted to give a big hat tip to Craig Penland, the Eurolink team, and the fastener industry, which we're deeply honored to be a part of.
All right.
And we're also very, very glad that you're clicked into this episode of Fully Threaded Radio, folks. We'll take a quick break, come back with IFI Chairman Larry Spelman. It's Fully Threaded
Radio.
Brian and Eric, your online Fastener Talk Radio brothers in thread. Fully Threaded Radio. Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. Star quality is more than products. It's simple. We're Star.
Goebel Fasteners is excited to announce our brand new 18-volt lithium-ion cordless battery tools. They are proven, reliable tools ideal for demanding assembly, maintenance, general metalworking, and trucking industry applications. Goebel Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
Looking for premium aluminum fastening solutions? Brighton Best International has partnered with Aluminum Fasteners to bring you an expanded lineup of top quality aluminum nuts, hex bolts, cap screws, flat washers, and split lock washers, all available and stocked nationwide. Engineered for excellence in solar, railway, electrical, and transportation industries, our aluminum fasteners offer lightweight strength, corrosion resistance, and lasting durability. Need something custom? Our mill department is ready to help. Find unbeatable fastening solutions at brightonbest.com. Tested, tried, and true. We are Brighton Best.
Hey, this is Don Shan Fastener. No S on the end, guys. No S. Shan Fastener. You're listening to Eric and Brian. Over a decade. The Blowhorn. Fully threaded radio.
Here at the Fall IFI Conference in fabulous Louisville, Kentucky. It's been a great event here. I'm speaking with Larry Spelman. He's the current chairman of the IFI. Congratulations on a wonderful conference so far, Larry.
Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate that. It's a lot of fun. A lot of eager eyes watching these presentations and enjoying these presentations. And they're unique. They're unique. Each event is a different event. And we've got some people making some choices here, so it's really cool.
I'm glad I was able to catch you as everyone is adjourning here for day one, heading off to the golf course, many of them. Of course, I think some of the others are going off on a rather interesting tour this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got about 80 golfers, but the balance of the group is going to go on a kind of a self-guided. We just gave them a pass and said, go enjoy the different tours of Louisville. So there's a Slugger Museum, there's the Muhammad Ali. And then tomorrow we're going to go down to Churchill Downs. Enjoy some of the horse racing history and everything. So what a neat city. What a cool place to be. And of course, bourbon's involved.
Okay, so now we're getting to the quick of it. So yeah, you can't walk around this hotel, a beautiful location, Galt House, without realizing that the city is rich in that tradition.
Rich. And yeah, it's everywhere. We actually had someone that's a long IFI member, a very well-established member that's going to retire. And we gave him his own version of bourbon when it had an insignia of the IFI on it yesterday. So I had the pleasure of at last night's dinner providing him with that. So that was fun to be able to honor him.
That's right, and that was Mr. Jeff Leiter. We are going to be bidding him adieu. It's hard to believe, yes. Well, congratulations on growing the IFI, because I've noticed a lot of energy, and I heard earlier that this is the largest fall conference to date, and there's something like 180 people here. It's really exciting.
We tried to make this drivable for a lot of the membership, and because we wanted to try some different things, the split sessions and giving some people some options and change to that, and change to the itinerary was important. But we wanted people to reach into their organizations and bring younger people in, so we could kind of change the profile of the IFI. So yeah, this is great. It's great to see the results of that. We talked about it a year ago, and here we are, and we're doing it, and the results came through. It's great.
And I'll be talking about that further with Dan and Preston on the podcast. Aside from growing the association, really, what is your focus here? There's so much going on legislatively and in the industry and things, but what are you personally focusing on for your chairmanship here?
Making some necessary adjustments so the information can flow to the membership easier. Because like you said, there's so much, and there's so much changing. There's so much layers that are getting layered on more and more. And the IFI has become such a huge resource. Not everybody's aware of all the tools that are at their beck and call, essentially, with the IFI. So it's really about communicating. It's about opening it up. It's about new software resources we're going to be using to make the IFI open up to the membership better.
Yeah, there's a lot in your value package. We'll be talking about that a lot more too. So for audience members who aren't familiar with J.H. Botts, tell us a little bit about that. It's a very unusual name. What is the name? I'm guessing the founder?
John Botts is the founder, so his middle name was H. And I don't even know what the H stands for. Isn't that kind of bad? But J.H. Botts has been making anchor bolts since 1973 for most of the large pole manufacturers. So if the road is lit when you're driving down the street at night, Botts anchor bolts are holding the poles in place in the ground. And we also do a lot with the grid work with utilities. We got a plant in Joliet, Illinois, and we've got 60 proud employees that really put a lot of effort into it.
Well, you're well positioned for your chairmanship. You've got a great team here. Again, great event. Thank you very much for the invitation. Look forward to supporting the IFI going forward.
Looking forward to tomorrow as well. And thanks so much for joining us. This is great. Appreciate it.
Then I spent a couple of nights in Louisville on our way through to different parts of Kentucky. So it's a very interesting little city, Louisville.
Well, you guys love bourbon.
Yeah, I know. Oh, we had a great time. We went to about 3 different distilleries in Louisville. It's cool. Angel's Envy, one of the particularly ones I remember. Some of the others were sort of a little not quite rustic enough for me. I like the distilleries a little bit like Maker's Mark, somewhere else stuck out in the country. But it's a really very interesting city to visit, Louisville.
I was only able to stay for the welcome and then the first part of day 1, so I missed out on that tour, but we'll have to catch up with McNulty because I know he stuck around for the whole thing. Carmen was there too.
He'd be looking for a vodka distillery rather than a bourbon distiller.
Yeah, he's a big Tito's fan. Although, the other day, where was I? I saw a bottle of Jack Daniel's vodka, and I think the gimmick is that it's aged in bourbon casks because it's got a brown hue. It looked like bourbon. If you didn't know it was vodka, you wouldn't have thought it was. But yeah, he probably found himself a couple martinis with Jack Daniel's vodka in them. That's my guess. We'll catch up with him too.
Could be. I mean, the people who make bourbon could also make vodka or gin if they wanted to. I mean, it's just another extra step.
Yeah, it all starts out pretty much the same. Doesn't really matter what you make it out of. It's
yeah, how you deal with what you're mixing out to give a different flavor.
Yeah, all the refining is where the magic happens. Well, the IFI is doing everything it can, I think, to broaden its appeal, and we've seen their presence more and more. For example, they hosted the government affairs session at the MWFA Fastener Week this year. They're showing up to the Vegas show, so a lot of outreach. And we'll have Preston Boyd and Dan Walker on the podcast later this month talking about some of the specific programs that they're getting. Most specifically, I'm really interested to learn about their apprenticeship program because being manufacturing oriented, they are acutely aware of the labor issue facing the industry. And I think they have some very exciting ways of addressing it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I ran into several people at the IFI that I wasn't expecting. InSequel Software was there. I got a free pen, Bri.
Really? Good.
And I got a chance to hang out with Lawrence a little bit more. We've got an unthreaded episode that's already in the can with him. That'll be coming out just a little bit after we publish this one, so stay tuned for that as well.
That's cool.
But also met a lot of people that I haven't spoken to before, so excellent use of time.
So it's a different sort of a crowd to what we see at our Fastener distributors shows.
Yep, it's another side of the industry. Oh, Matt DeLauder from SWD was there as well. Looking, I might add, like he was about ready to attend the Kentucky Derby.
He probably was.
Yeah, he was dressed to the nines. He loves representing the MWFA, the best dressed of all the fastener associations.
Except when I turn up.
Well, that's going to do it for me and attending fastener events for at least a few months. I don't think I'll make it out to Chicago for the MWFA Christmas party this year. I hope you and Lynn will get out there for it.
We will try, actually. It is quite frequently, there's some conflicting thing we have. We haven't been able to make it for a couple of years, but we used to.
Well, I hope you make it out. And 2026 is going to be another very interesting year of fastener events. A few of the big ones have already been announced. This isn't a comprehensive list, but as long as I just saw them fly by, the Pac West announced their spring conference that's happening March 11th through the 13th at the Westin Anaheim Resort. They like to base out of that location. It's a good place for a meeting. And of course, Fastener Fair coming on strong, turning into lots of people's favorite national event. This time they'll be in Charlotte, North Carolina, May 5th and 6th. Be interesting to see, Bri, if they do some kind of a fusion theme with Cinco de Mayo and NASCAR or something, you know?
I'm not quite sure how you've mixed those two together.
Gringo tacos. You're a big fan of those, aren't you?
No, I don't know. I like the Mexican tacos. Cebolla, cilantro, none of this lettuce and sour cream stuff.
Yeah, and this crappy Velveeta cheese.
Yeah, whoever thought that could be possibly called a taco?
Some gringo, obviously. No, you're muy auténtico.
Me, see.
Well, anyway, we'll see what happens at Fastener Fair USA May 5th and 6th. And of course, MWFA Fastener Week, the week with no vowels. They've got a big one this year. It's happening at the end of August, and they're changing venues to Navy Pier, downtown Chicago, which is huge.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool place. I mean, right jutting out into the lake. It's an amazing place, Navy Pier.
Who knows what DeLauder's going to be wearing that day? Him and George Hunt.
Well, George has got his diamond-studded shoes, remember?
Yeah, but the thing about him is he rarely repeats, you know. He's got to continuously stun everyone, so you never know what he's going to turn up in. Anyway, the MWFA is great at that, and this 80th anniversary event should be a biggie.
Yeah.
GQ will be on with Mike McNulty, and he'll be plugging that a little bit more on the news report. Then the last one I've got here on my sheet, of course, is the Vegas show, which is no longer the Vegas show. Now it's just the International Fastener Expo, which is moving to Phoenix, the Phoenix Convention Center, October 8th through the 9th, 2026.
That will be interesting, I have to say, after years of Las Vegas.
Yes. I think other things being equal, it's going to be a pretty big success. I think a lot of people are curious, interested. They'll be happy if the pricing is a little bit more reasonable. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Vegas has become an expensive place, even though there's all this news about how the tourists are stopping. They haven't made them change their prices. It's a very expensive place to go and stay.
Well, speaking of expensive, Bri, I caught
my life.
Yeah, pretty much everything. Although gas prices are really strange these days. I don't know about you, but here in semi-rural Northeast Ohio, this is October 2025, in case you're listening to this episode in the future in the archives, but we're paying as low as $2.45 a gallon for fuel.
Well, that's cheap. That couldn't possibly be the case in Chicago or in the Chicago area. Really, really cheap is about $3 a gallon. I mean,
right. But even having said that, with all the incumbent graft and very necessary taxes,
yeah,
that's still a pretty reasonable price, considering so many other things are at all-time highs.
Oh, yeah. Well, your average prices in general be $1 less than ours, just around this area.
Yes, but all this is to say that nobody knows what prices of fuel would be like or what it would cost, put it this way, because I'm getting outlandish here with this wind-up. But I saw the new October-November Fastener Technology International magazine, Bri, and it's another fine issue. McNulty does such a great job editing that magazine. It's just so dense with high-quality info. But this time I zeroed in right on page 206. Why? Because there's a story about lunar rovers and a company, a startup called Neurospace, German-based, that's specializing in lunar vehicles. What did you make of this?
Well, I thought it was a very good advertisement for a very famous and frequently knocked off German plastic screw, produced by a company called EJOT. But I just thought the design of it was a little bit of a letdown. It looked like sort of a World War I tank. I thought coming from German people where they have access to Porsche design, they could have designed a slightly better looking moon rover.
Well, maybe they were shooting for something that looks like an updated version of the famous Apollo lunar rover, which allegedly was used up there. And, you know, that thing was pretty, it looked like something the Little Rascals would have put together, you know. But this thing, I agree, it looks very kludgy. And I think the image that's on page, what is that, 206?
Yeah. Right.
206?
Yeah.
I think it may be an AI. I don't know that it's even a photo or a model of the thing. I think it's actually just a AI depiction.
Yeah, I know. When I first looked at it, I was wondering, where's the completely round top? Usually it was one of the old World War I tanks. That was where the gun was stuck. It used to spin around like a Dalek machine.
Well, you wouldn't need a moon roof on it.
No, I wouldn't.
You're already on the moon.
Well, good on them. Okay. I mean, if they can produce one, it's got to deal with a really, really tough environment going from in the sun when it gets sort of slightly warm to down near absolute zero when the sun goes away.
The article explains how they're doing all of this very, very comprehensive testing for everything from vibration to radiation, microgravity variations. I mean, all kinds of things that I guess aerospace people think about all the time, but most fastener people don't. My question, though, is who are they actually building this for? You know, they reference in the story NASA and the CNSA, which I presume is the Chinese equivalent of NASA.
It is.
And there's another one there that I don't know what it is, the ISRO.
Well, ESA was the European Space Agency.
Yeah, well, they weren't listed. They don't have any money, though, Bri. That's probably why.
Okay. Like the rest of us.
We have lots of money, Bri. It's just not real.
Oh, okay.
But this lunar rover, maybe it is. I don't know. It's definitely a curiosity.
Apart from the ones that are driven by humans on the moon, they have not been amazingly successful moon rovers developed. They sort of fall over and things go sort of wrong with them. So maybe they can do a better one.
So it sounds like you're of the view that we actually had a lunar rover up there already. Do you think that that lunar rover was mostly assembled in place once they disembarked onto the lunar surface during that Apollo version of this thing? I mean, it's always bewildered me how they could have possibly jammed all that equipment into that teeny little capsule that is said to have landed up there.
Well, I presume it unfolded. I don't know that to be true. It had to. And remember, there was a bigger unit that landed on the moon because the whole bottom part of it was the launch pad for the little bit that flew away.
I remember going to the Smithsonian Institution as a young kid and seeing those artifacts from the Apollo missions and saying to myself, you know, I could probably build one of those in the basement myself, you know, hoping Mom wouldn't mind if a whole bunch of the tinfoil was missing from the kitchen drawer, you know?
Right. Well, you had to take the tinfoil and then sort of put varnish on it to make it look like gold.
You know, I also don't see any solar panels on this thing, on this picture that's in.
Correct. I noticed that exactly too.
Well, maybe it's a hybrid, you know, getting back to the whole subject of the cost of gas. Maybe gas is so cheap they think it's easier for them to just bring a few gallons along.
Yeah, I have a feeling they wouldn't find quite enough oxygen to run their engine up there, but they will need batteries somewhere.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about these kinds of things. You know, they can miraculously overcome previously impossible engineering problems. And next thing you know, we're cruising around in dune buggies up on the moon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've gotten a little far afield. I just wanted to really plug the latest fastener technology, but I couldn't resist pointing this out because it is a curiosity.
And the article is about the EJOT screws that they've been testing to make sure they can withstand the all the rigors of launch.
Do we have any EJOT screws in the FCH sourcing network that you know of?
Yes, we do. It's a very common, very well-known screw, but mainly just for plastics, and it's been copied many times.
Well, you'd think with 1.8 million listings at fastenersclearinghouse.com, it wouldn't be a big shock to find some EJOT screws.
No.
Now, what would be really interesting would be if these guys from Neurospace showed up and did a few queries, you know, and bought a few of their screws through FCH.
That's true.
Put one of your sniffers on that, Bri.
Yeah, stranger things have happened. We very frequently have the Navy shipyards in buying stuff off FCH that we end up setting up a special account for them.
Well, I'm glad you're out there taking care of those specialty users of the network. We do what we can. I was spreading that message at the IFI, getting back to the top of the segment here, when I was visiting. Our purpose, of course, is to expand the FCH sourcing network every direction we can. These days, with the greater importance of domestic manufacturing, we're looking to make a few more relationships in that area, as was in sequel, I might add, Bri.
Cool. Okay, good.
Had Rob Big Country Reynolds on a couple episodes ago explaining how they're expanding to support manufacturing every way they can. And that's what we're doing too. We appreciate you using FCH, folks, and we appreciate you listening to the podcast.
Yes, we do.
We'll cut for a message from our partners. We'll also hear from Marco Rodriguez of Cresa. Then we'll get back with what many people regard as the high point of each episode, Bri. Mike McNulty's News Report.
Cool.
Talk to you in just a minute.
Talk radio for the fastener industry. It's not really all that bad for the most part. Brian and Eric, fully threaded radio.
Since 1905, Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company have been supplying the world with high-quality fasteners. Our standard product lines include weld fasteners, braided weld screws, leg levelers, self-clinching hardware, clevis pins, rivet nuts, and various other fastener lines, allowing us to support virtually all types of industries. BuckeyeFasteners.com. Buckeye Fasteners, more than just weld.
This is Marco Rodriguez with Cresa, and welcome back to the FTR Industrial Real Estate Update. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest decisions a distribution business owner faces. Should I lease my facility or purchase it? Now, this isn't just about real estate. It's about cash flow, flexibility, and building long-term wealth. FTR listeners are probably experts at managing inventory and supply chains. But when it comes to lease versus purchase analysis, the numbers can look like a foreign language. So I'll try to translate this into plain English. First, the purchase option. When you buy a building, you take on much larger upfront costs. Your initial cash outlay is substantial, covering the down payment, improvements, and soft costs like inspections and financing fee. This massive capital investment could otherwise be used to grow your core distribution business. However, purchasing creates significant value over the long term. After slowly paying down the mortgage over a 20-year period, you own a significant asset. As an example, many of the private fastener companies that sold their businesses to private equity firms kept their buildings and are now collecting rent checks from those businesses. Now, let's look at the lease option. The huge advantage here is preserving working capital. The initial cash required to lease is only a fraction of that required to purchase. You generally just need 2 months of rent, one for the security deposit and another for the first month's rent. This preserved capital can be kept working in your distribution business to produce returns higher than the appreciation rate of the building. As an industrial tenant rep broker, I can tell you that capital preservation is often the number one priority for a growing business. Now, the downside, leasing, of course, doesn't create equity. You're paying rent, which typically increases annually by 2.5% to 3%. So over 20 years, the total cash spent is actually higher than the cash outlay for purchasing. However, the critical benefit of leasing is the flexibility to move. A lease offers a defined term shorter than the life of a purchased asset, allowing your company to easily relocate to a smaller, larger, or even more strategically placed building when the lease expires. This allows you to stay nimble and adapt your footprint without the complicated process of selling your property. It's also worth noting that whether you are purchasing or leasing, taxes and insurance are ultimately paid by the building's occupant. Even if your lease is not itemized in a triple net lease, the landlord is passing those expenses onto the tenant in the form of rent. So the bottom line, the choice depends on your company's financial strategy. To purchase requires significantly more upfront capital, but the long-term annual cost is lower due to the building equity and the potential resale of the building. Leasing requires a smaller initial investment, preserving a large percentage of your capital, but results in a higher average annual operating cost because there is no asset or value at the end of the lease. Many factors, including building purchase price, interest rates, operating margins, and your working cost of capital, should be considered when making these decisions. Understanding the leverage of your capital, how much you put down versus how much you save in the long run, is the first step to making an informed decision on what's right for your fastener distribution business. If you'd like my help to build a complete financial model for your situation, reach out to me on LinkedIn at Marco Rodriguez with Cresa. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey there, fully threaded radio fans. We have been hearing a lot of tariff talks over the last couple of months. Put those concerns to rest with BTM Manufacturing, a domestic manufacturer of anchor bolts, single and double end studs, round and square bend U-bolts, and much, much more. BTM Manufacturing, a commitment to service.
Hi, this is Rob, Big Country Reynolds of NSequel Software, coming to you from the 19th hole, and you are listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
and it's the news segment. Got Mike McNulty coming up in just a minute with the Fastener News Report. He'll be talking with Bob GQ Baer this time. They'll be going over the Fastener Distributor Index, the September numbers. Pretty interesting, a lot of people think. Speaking of which, I've got somebody on the line here to pass a little time until Mike comes up. Maybe dive into the head scratcher on this one, which is the decline of the forward-looking indicator. Parker Jensen's Vice President of Sales over there at Atlas Distribution. Hey, brother, what are you seeing out there? Well, how do you explain all that?
Hey, Eric. Great to be on.
Last time I talked to you, you were flying down the high-speed rail somewhere in China. Wasn't that right?
Yeah. We're going like 250 miles an hour or something, recording live on a pod halfway around the world. Now just here in Dallas, Texas, and interested and excited to talk about this FLI and FDI and how it doesn't make complete sense.
It doesn't really seem to. And you get around and you're always traveling and talking to a lot of people. And while you're doing that, of course, you have a knack for mapping out some of the finer eateries on your routes, I've noticed. Are you a member of the NFBBQA?
I'm not, but I could give me an invite and I'll be there.
Well, you're invited right now. Lay down some good barbecues in the Dallas area. I know that you are always sampling what's out there. You got a good brisket joint near you?
Pecan Lodge is awesome in Dallas. There's a Terry Black's, which is more famous. They're originally from Austin, but they're nearby in Dallas too. There's Cadillac Barbecue that's pretty famous around here. And I used to live in Fort Worth, and my favorite joint in Fort Worth was Panther City Barbecue in South Fort Worth.
Very well known.
I'll join the NFBBQ if we can agree on that Texas barbecue is the best barbecue in the country.
Well, you're going to have to win a few folks over to prove that, but you're invited to do so. And I will take that as an opportunity to invite you to the next fest. We'll get down to business there. Well, right now, let's take a look here at what's going on with this FLI. So I distracted you, and now my mouth's watering. It serves me right. It's going into lunchtime where I'm at right now, but back to fasteners. What are you seeing out there, Parker?
So what we're looking at today and why we were talking about it being a little weird is the FDI was much higher than last month, about 4 points up, and the FLI is about 6 points down. So I think what I was seeing more is the FDI, I think, is inflated a little bit up. It's showing sales being up 17 points over the last month, which I think a lot of that has to do with the tariff prices getting into customers' inventories, distributors' inventories, and them going to sell at a much higher price. I think if you look at, we're talking about 50% taxes on almost all of our imported fasteners now, not over 90% from China nowadays. So we're talking about an insane increase in prices in the last 6 months. So I would say that 70 number for sales, which is extremely high. I'm wondering if that's a record. Definitely the highest this year. I would like to see what the earnings from those sales are, because I'm sure the earnings are relatively flat, where the sales are higher, but the sales also include a 40-50% tax on the goods that we sell.
Well, you're not mincing words there, and others share that view. We'll see for sure. Again, we got Mike McNulty and Bob GQ Baer coming up to crash through these numbers, and GQ is always very fastidious in the way he goes about that, so we'll see how it compares. You know what I'm really interested in is with this FLI number, do you see any kind of a noticeable downturn in demand from your interactions out there on the street?
Yeah, so at Atlas, we sell through distribution completely. So we're only as good at knowing about the market from our distribution partners who are selling to the OEMs, who are selling to the metal fabricators, who are selling to big construction companies. And what I'm seeing is kind of different sectors doing different things. So in regular OEM manufacturing, automotive, heavy truck, trailer, ag equipment, I'm seeing that being relatively flat, if not a little slow. I think, something that we've talked about before, Eric, is this huge boom in AI and the data centers that AI needs for all their compute power. So when we see these huge investments, 500 billion from Oracle and 200 billion, and it's like they're all competing on who can make the biggest investment in AI and these data centers. What I'm seeing is that market. So that would be structural fasteners, fasteners related to data centers, electrical, strut accessories, threaded rod. The construction related distributors, I think, are doing really strong. If you can get a piece of that huge data center pie that grows every day and is going to continue to grow, I think, to suck up all this compute power. I think I read something recently where if you look at the growth in 2025 so far, you really only have 2%, or we're at a pretty normal 2% growth track for this year. But if you take out all the AI growth, we're really at a flat or maybe even a little bit downturn of a year. So if you can get a little bit of a piece of the fastener pie in the data centers, I think you're doing well. If you're just relying on kind of OEM manufacturing, you're probably flat or maybe a little bit down this year.
Sounds consistent with what we're hearing elsewhere. So I think that's a pretty good analysis for right now. And probably another big reason that people are just not sure what to believe. And I think that uncertainty can lead to the lowering of the FLI for sure. So we got the tariffs, we've got this unknown AI bubble. How long will it go? How high will it get till it changes? Let's put it that way.
Right. And I think there are lots of opportunities in that area for fastener sales to grow. It's weird thinking about this concept of AI and you think about robots and the Matrix or whatever you think about when you think about computers, people behind their desk, robots writing code. But to support this industry, you have to build these huge data centers. There's going to be a ton of power, investment in nuclear, investment in solar, investment in hydroelectric. And what do all those things need, Eric? Our fasteners. So what's good about our industry, and I think, we have been an industry that's been abnormally affected by tariffs because most fasteners are imported and our tariffs are higher than the rest of, tariffs on imports of steel and things made of steel are higher than the rest of the market. So what's good about that is people always need fasteners. You can't build anything without a nut, bolt, or screw. So what's good about our industry is people still need us throughout all these changes. It just may come in different forms of how our fasteners are being used.
We're surrounded by them, face it.
Yes, sir.
The Fastener News Report is sponsored by Volt Industrial Plastics, has been for many years. We very much appreciate it. And the title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio, Star Stainless, Global Fasteners, and Brighton Best International. Parker, last time I was talking to you personally, last time you were on the podcast, you were on that high-speed rail, but personally, we were hanging out at the MWFA. It was before the welcome party, I guess, and you were showing me some of these RFQs that you have coming in and what it takes to skim through these things. We put a few of them through ChatGPT, and so I know AI, as it applies directly to your job, is on top of your mind. Are you using any tools right now that are making your job a little easier or upgrading your efficiency, do you think, or are you still looking for the magic key?
It's interesting, Eric. I think me and our boss, Mr. Scott Camp, who you know well, we're pretty skeptical about AI in our industry for a while. I think what we're finding is it continues to get better. Quoting is extremely tedious part of our jobs in fasteners. Cross-referencing, understanding what a description that was made in the 1960s, what that means today is hard, but I think the AI is getting pretty good too. There's companies that we've been talking to recently, like Soft or Boltwise, or even I think FCH is using quite a bit of AI today too. And I'm curious and wanting to stay on top of how you're using it to grow. Our business is very personal. It's very personalized to each customer. And it's hard to think that AI will replace us as sales reps. But I think if you're not using it in some way, you're probably falling behind. So I have ChatGPT open on my browser most of the time. It's not great. for some things, like I was using it today to try to figure out the HDS code of the gloves I wanted to look at importing, the tariff rate. I think for things that are somewhat new, like all the tariffs that came about this year, it struggles without being able to scroll through years and years of data on the internet to find the answer. So yeah, I think it's imperfect, but I think it's something that we definitely are trying to stay on top of and use in the future.
Okay, roger that. I think I'm hearing a lot of the same, and we'll stand by. We're all looking for that solution right now that's really going to rip it open for us. In the meanwhile, you're always looking over your shoulder expecting somebody else is going to hit it. So I got to ask.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's something that, years ago when you talked about in the podcast, I honestly thought it was a little overhyped and like, how can AI be used in nuts and bolts? But I'm slowly becoming a believer, Eric, that it's going to be something that we use more and more in our day-to-day, and it's something that I'm using more and more in my day-to-day.
Yeah, there are a lot of functions that we can use it for, I think. We'll discover it as time goes on, and it's right around the corner, I'm pretty sure. All right, well, appreciate that, Parker. So you are VP Sales, Atlas Distribution. Always welcome on this podcast, as you know, and I'm looking forward to our first NFBBQA event when you can show me what you know about Texas barbecue, because that's going to be a good day.
It's cool to be on the premier Fastener podcast. I've always been a fan, Eric, and it's fun to be a contributor now. But yeah, let's get after it with some barbecue. Would love to join this new organization, add another one. Do I get a badge or anything? Is there an initiation ceremony?
You can be on the swag committee. What do you say? Charter membership has its benefits.
Awesome.
All right. Right now, there's one more benefit you can provide the fully threaded listening audience. I'm sure you know what that is.
Yes, sir. Pleasure to do this. Now, with news about screws that you can use, here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Parker. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. With over 800,000 workers furloughed, October 2025 might just become the U.S. government's best shutdown ever, and the Nobel Peace Prize Committee may be going into hiding, but I am still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, Abbott-Interfast President Bob Baer joins us to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story from SPS Technologies, plus newsmaker headlines from United Titanium, Hodel Natco, Rotorclip, Packer Fastener, Rot Washer, Linfast Solutions Group, Brighton Best International, UFAB, and more. On the back page report, we're going to talk about industry events. We'll get to all of that and the latest FDI results right after this.
Hey there, Fastener distributors. This is Heidi Voltschauer from Volt Industrial Plastics. As a fellow fastener industry business, Volt knows you are always on the lookout for ways to help your customer while keeping costs in check. So, why not plastic? Listen, there's no argument that metal fasteners have to be used for certain applications. But when strength isn't the primary concern, why not explore the saving benefits of plastic? You not only save your company money, but also pass those savings on to your valued customers. Our team at Volt makes sourcing easy, and we look forward to helping you find exactly what you need when you need it. So, for all of your plastic fastener needs, you know the website, voltplastics.com.
Precision, efficiency, durability. JLN Franco has been a trusted name for the finest lock nuts worldwide and across North America for over 40 years, providing self-locking lock nuts and critical bolting components for applications in aerospace, energy, military, rail, mining, industrial, and many other sectors where reliability and high performance are essential. JLNFranco.com. JLN Franco, lock nuts for critical bolted joints.
This is Craig Penland from Eurolink. As we celebrate our 25th anniversary, I want to reflect on how we got here and, more importantly, why we're still here. It's not just about fasteners or supply chains. It's about our mission. For 25 years, we've worked as your partner in solving problems. We've done it with integrity, grit, and by supporting one another. Fulfilling your supply chain needs quickly and efficiently is our top priority. We exist to serve, solve, and support, and we couldn't do it without you. Here's to 25 years of service and many more to come. Eurolink, hard to find metric fasteners delivered.
Back to the Fastener News Report with Mike McNulty.
The seasonally adjusted Fastener Distributor Index for September 2025 surged to 55.8 after posting a decent reading of 51.3 in August, seasonally adjusted. This was the 7th reading above 50 out of the last 8 and clearly the best of the year. The forward-looking indicator, also known as the FLI, took a nosedive last month to 48.9 after posting an optimistic 54.3 in August, making it 6 of the last 9 months of being below 50. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and Baer. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we're going to talk to Abbott-Interfast President Bob Baer. Hello, Bob. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Hi, Mike. Thank you very much for the intro, and it's good to be back. I know it's been a while.
It's been a while, but it's good to be back. I know you keep the pulse of the FDI pretty close to your chest.
Well, I'm a numbers guy, right? So
yeah, right.
I do review it, and I do provide the chart, color chart for MWFA Monthly, which they post, and a few other people. So
yeah, so thanks for doing that. And what do you think about the latest FDI results?
Well, fortunate enough to be on one of the highest, actually probably the highest month of the year on the FDI, and I was really looking over the data, trying to figure out where we're at, what caused it, where's it coming from, and a jump like that. It obviously indicates expansion, but it's jumping faster than it has in the past. Same time, the FLI fell pretty sharply,
right?
Which is suggesting that distributors are expecting weaker conditions coming ahead. Even though the current activity is up, they're cautious about going forward. This divergence, strong current activity and a soft outlook, usually it indicates, or often, I shouldn't say usually, often indicates a late cycle peak before we see some moderation or some flattening. So, cautiously optimistic, I guess, is the word I would use. 55.8, the biggest contributor to that was sales. Sales is the strongest driver here.
Yeah, one way up.
Man. Yes, way up. And that could be a combination of volume, and it could be a combination of pricing. As we all know, tariffs have raised all of our prices substantially, and I just wonder how much of that is related to, 15, 20, 40, depending on where the product coming from. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of hard to tell. I think the rest of the indexes are pretty flat. Employment, supplier deliveries, I won't say flat, but pretty consistent. So obviously sales is the major contributor. It's surprising. I was surprised by the number, actually.
Yeah, you mentioned the sales number. I think it's the highest of the year.
It is at 70.4 on the data that's being provided. And not only that, but sales, I think, is probably the biggest contributor to the index. I sat down years ago, and I don't know how many of you know what regression analysis is, where you take a number and a bunch of variables and you try to back into a formula, because the formula has always been a mystery to me. But I figure sales is about 30% of the index, which is 1/3 of it. So when that number really jumps or tanks, it has a pretty big impact. Customer inventories, on the other hand, has kind of an inverse relationship. So if customer inventories are dropping, that's positive for the index because it means future demand is coming. That looked like it was the case here. But the FLI, I think most of their weakness is pricing power, softening pricing.
Yeah, pricing went down month to month and year to year. Not by a lot, but it did go down.
Right. So I think that indicates that unfortunately, we're becoming accustomed and used to the tariffs. The good news is that our customers are also, and it's no longer becoming a negotiation. It's just a matter of fact. Here's what they are. Unfortunately, here's what we have to pay. So I think from this point on, maybe sales is going to level out. under the new pricing structure until such time that tariffs go away, if ever. And, then obviously we may see a drop. But I think that the current strong demand, my opinion, is that it's temporarily. I think we're going to see a slowdown still yet into Q4. Things are starting to take hold. Price increases are starting to make their way through the distribution channel and into the retail areas. But, current conditions, FDI at 55.8 is the best since early 23.
Really a big number, and the FLI headed the other way. I mean, you mentioned inventories, and they both went up a little bit, respondent inventories and customer inventories. You said that usually brings things down, but the sales had a bigger impact.
Yeah, and I think what's happening here is that some of this is related to tariffs. I think there were a lot of orders placed, a lot of importers brought product in. Nobody knew where the tariffs were going to go. I think we were trying to avoid some further increase in tariffs. And the fact that customers' inventories are still a little high, and I think customers are very cautiously ordering, not knowing where the economy is going to go. And so distributors' inventory is higher because that's not going out the door yet.
Yeah, the other numbers we have here, we have the 6-month outlook. The 6-month outlook got weaker. We had 29% expecting things to be higher 6 months from now, 32 the same, and 39 lower. So 39 was the majority, and compared to last month where we had 39 expecting it to be better, 33 the same, and 27 worse. So it looks like, the better and the worse kind of changed places there.
Yeah, and I think that obviously is a clue to where we're headed here in Q4, maybe even Q1 of 26, is to just expecting a slower order flow. Unless, pricing stabilizes further, if customers' inventories drop further, maybe some of that distributor inventory is going to go out the door. But again, optimistic. What we're seeing currently is great. Unexpected by me, but forward expectations are definitely weakening. And I think you need to be a little cautious moving ahead. Asia, I spoke to a few people in Asia. Taiwan orders are down substantially, 10 to 15%. They have a lot of capacity available. Their inquiries have dropped substantially from Q2 to now. A lot of this has to do with where we are in the economy. A lot of it has to do with the inventory buildup distributors already have. Some of it has to do with the weak dollar. The dollar has absolutely weakened against monetary products overseas. China, surprisingly, is not down as much as Taiwan. The big boys, BBI, Stelfast, Fastenal, they're still placing large orders as a distributor. But OEM orders have definitely slowed, and a lot of OEMs are actually pushing inventory deliveries out coming in from China. There's a lot of uncertainty overseas about what the U.S. economy is going to be doing, and the Asian market is actually putting a lot of effort now into looking at other parts of the world markets. Doesn't mean they'll go away from us. We're still obviously one of the biggest customers.
Right. There's still a lot going on here.
Yeah, and now, we have government shutdown. What are we on, day 9? We have lack of job data.
By the time people hear us, that might be changed. But yeah, you're right. We're in the almost in the double digits on the government shutdown. And I was wondering, okay, government shutdown on October 1st. And I'm not sure exactly when these surveys were filled out. So did that have any impact on people's expectations, on people's answers? I don't know.
Right. The data's old, in the eyes of the business market. The data's old, but it's interesting because the market doesn't seem to care. The S&P is
stock market. Oh my gosh! Right. I was going to bring that up. There's no correlation there. It just keeps going up.
Well, AI is a big portion of that. Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of
artificial surge in the stock market. Maybe.
Yeah, I would say artificially inflated would be my definition of the AI right now. But they're all making big investments, and those stocks, a lot of those stocks are carrying the S&P. Dow Jones is up probably 10% this year as well. And again, you look around the job market, we don't have the data currently, but it feels soft, outside of healthcare and leisure. People are traveling. I don't know if you've traveled lately, but airfare prices and hotel prices are through the roof. So
you're right.
People are definitely still not holding back as far as traveling around goes. The recent cut in the prime rate by the Fed is going to help a little bit. But manufacturing is not booming, but it's also not collapsing across the board. There are some areas, aerospace, auto. There are sectors that are up while others down, but I think overall U.S. manufacturing is remaining a little sluggish right now. I think firms that strategically start focusing on efficiency and being responsive to their customers are going to come out ahead of those who are relying on growth, because I'm not sure how growth is going to look going forward, although it's hard to argue with what we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, the last number we have is the ISM PMI for Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, and that went up a little bit to 49.1, and it's still below 50. We've had several months going all the way back to March of being below 50, but it's trending in the slightly positive direction.
Yes, it is positive, but the FDI the ISM and the FDI basically mirror each other. The ISM PMI index. Our index specifically reflects fastener distribution and supply chain. And we're kind of a niche that sits between, somewhere in the middle between raw materials, OEM production, downstream manufacturing, and retail. But, because fasteners touch nearly every manufacturing sector, the FDI often is seen as a leading, indicator for the broader economy. So if that's the indication and we're going on the upside, I would expect the PMI at some point here to get into the expansion, get over the hump.
The Mendoza line. That's the baseball reference.
Speaking of baseball, my condolences to you. I know you jumped back on the Cleveland bandwagon and broke my heart to see them knocked out. I want Cleveland to go all the way.
Well, I think the Tigers had one of the worst records in baseball the last month of the season, so that suffering strengthened them for the playoffs, I guess. And
they took it out on you guys.
They took it out, and then they're taking the Marlins to Game 5, which will be over by the time anybody hears this. But we
right, exactly.
And the Yankees will probably be buried by then too. So,
the other things going on is it's really the environment is uncertain and it changes more often than ever. Policy changes are coming faster than TikTok changes. It's incredible. It's tough to plan.
Yeah.
And but you can't sit still. You have to do something. You have to take a position and you have to move on.
Right. You are right. So let's move on to the commentary, which was mostly positive this month, but painted with some uncertainty, which you have mentioned quite a few times here. So we'll go through these comments. If you want to jump in on weigh in on any of them, just jump on in. The first one, It says, September was a good month for incoming orders, and Q3 was another record high in shipments. I don't know how long the tailwinds will last, but we're ready to ride them, end quote.
Yeah. Well, they sound like they're in the right sector.
Exactly. Yeah. Next one said, despite the political headwinds, we got tailwinds and headwinds, our business continues to grow, and we expect the end of the year and the beginning of next year to be positive for our business.
Interesting. Some more, it's positive, which is great.
Yeah, the first two were the most positive.
I mean, they definitely reflect the trend of what's been happening. Let's see what else we've got.
And the next one was a little bit more tempered. It says, September was just an average month. Nothing horrible and nothing stellar. I will take that small profit as a win. Profit's always good, right? Whether it's growing or shrinking, it's still.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a middle of the road position, which is probably accurate given the uncertainty. We don't know where things are going to go. They look great now, but as the FLI demonstrates, there is some uncertainty about the future, and nobody expects this to continue at the current pace.
This time around, I was thinking maybe we would be escaping the tariffs, but we have three more comments, and they all have tariff or trade in them, but it's maybe not as dominant as the last few months. But here's the first one. Tariffs continue to present challenges since there's still a certain amount of mystery surrounding them and where the final numbers will land. Our data center business is at an all-time high, and we expect this to continue into the future.
I don't disagree with that. As an importer and a domestic manufacturer, we've shifted a lot of product to domestic manufacturing because, again, the tariffs are very fluid. They haven't changed lately, but this court date is coming up, and the reciprocal tariffs are under fire, and I'm not sure what'll come out of that, but that could change all the numbers again. Every time the numbers change, we all spend a lot of time recomputing costs and sales and going back and forth with customers. And that in itself is a drag on sales and production.
Well, drag is the appropriate word there. But calling out specific centers, this is data center at all-time high. So people in that are doing pretty well, I think. All right, next comment. The tariffs are slowly coming home to roost, and it's impacting customers. Many are reducing SKUs to reduce fastener consumption. New construction starts are going to fall, so say our local builders who say they're going to finish up and start laying off crews. Prices are really going up because pre-tariff inventories are vanishing.
Yeah, correct. And this is where, the delay of ordering and coming in and finally arriving and distributors paying that tariff and having to pass that on to their customers and eventually, getting out in the marketplace. I think we all knew there would be a lag, and at some point it would come to fruition. So here we are.
Yep.
And it's going to hit the retail market as well. I wonder how this Christmas season is going to go.
Well, if people spend on Christmas like they spend on traveling, it'll be fine. and going out to eat. Last comment is, with all the uncertainty still remaining with trade policy, it feels like customers will remain cautious with purchases, and consumer sentiment indicators are trending down, which will lead to lower demand.
Right. I agree 100% with that. I think our customers are cautiously keeping their inventory low and not loading up because of the uncertainty and the expectation that we're looking at a softer Q1 and Q2. Fortunately, some distributors are stockpiled with inventory so that if by any chance this flips around, there will be some inventory available. But I think once it starts to disappear off the shelf, it's going to disappear quickly, and then we're going to be into a situation where prices start to rise again.
Rise again. Okay. All right. Well, we've made it through another month. Anything else you want to add on the FDI results or the FLI results or tariffs or uncertainty or?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. I'd like to do a call out to all those people listening. I know it's hard to make time, but this is a really important index to our industry, and the more people that jump in, the more accurate the numbers are. I think the numbers do reflect what's happening, but they could be a little more refined if we had a little more participation. I know Eric's always calling out for additional participation too, but if you're listening and you're enjoying the report monthly, by all means, try to jump in and contribute back and report some numbers so we can refine them a little further.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion for the listeners. And like you say, the more that participate, the better it is for the report and better for everybody in the industry. Good. So let's move on to you can give you a chance to talk to the listeners of what's going on at Abbott-Interfast.
Well, actually, I'd like to address a couple things, Midwest and Abbott, but let's start with Abbott. Not sure if it's out there. We've recently came back from the Vegas show, and I know that people are on the fence about whether the show was good, bad, or indifferent. We had a really good show, one of the first in a long time, but we exhibited as Abbott Metalworks in lieu of Abbott-Interfast. Abbott Metalworks is our manufacturing division, and we are investing in domestic manufacturing. We are now cold forming nuts, tapping nuts in-house. We've brought in 4 cold heading machines so far, a couple tappers, a couple more on order, additional closing machines, because there is a demand for domestic product and it's not going to go away. And I think even the big distributors that are eventually going to go back to majority of buying overseas at Asia for price will always have a backup and want domestic product just in case, COVID or the freight issues, ocean freight.
Proximity just makes sense. Yeah,
exactly. So there's some diversification going on the purchasing side. And we decided a year and a half ago to jump into this. So we've been, of course, it's been a challenge. We're starting a cold forming manufacturing shop from scratch. So there's been some challenges, but we're there now and we're up and running, and it's very exciting. On the CNC side, we've got capacity in our CNC machines. Years ago, we brought in 5 or 6 CNC machines. So we've been focusing on cold heading, but I will state that if you're out there and you're looking to have product made to very close tolerances, we do have open capacity as far as that goes.
Now, you guys started this manufacturing plans and surges several years ago. So it's been a long time in the making, right?
We did. We did. And yeah, this is probably in our 3rd or 4th year of expansion. We initially brought in a couple machines 5-6 years ago, but we got extremely serious about it 3-4 years ago. And about 18 months ago, we said, look, if we're gonna try to be everything to our customers, then we need to start cold forming. So we're forming nuts. The plan is to cold form specials as well, one step at a time. The current tariffs have put a little bit of a damper on us buying some machines come from overseas. And so our president is now taxing those substantially. So we put a little bit of a hold on it temporarily, but the plan is to go.
So you guys had some good foresight, and now you're going to reap the benefits. I think you're probably a popular stop at the IFE show. I was going to say Las Vegas show, but I'll have to change that term someday.
Yes, yeah, it's going to be the Phoenix show now, hopefully. I don't know for how long. But no, we had a really good show. We have no shortage of inquiries, that's for certain.
I think you had a double booth this time, right?
We did. Yeah, we had a 10 by 20. So
nice.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Very good.
MWFA side, just give me 2 minutes with that. We had a huge success with our Fastener Week again in Lincolnshire this year. And I'd like to announce, for those of you who don't know, that next year is our 80th year anniversary of the MWFA. We're having a big shindig. The show will be taking place at Navy Pier in Chicago. We're still in the planning stages. Things are getting around, but I know the save the date postcards are out there.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it's going to be really something. Currently, our scholarship dinner is coming up November 13th. We have our Hall of Fame induction, and we have a couple of board members, Ross Shepard and Wayne Wishnu, being inducted into the MWFA Hall of Fame, along with Brighton Best as a company. And our speaker is the infamous Rudy Rudiger, Notre Dame.
Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy. Yeah, you've seen the movie? There's a movie out
More
there.
than once.
There you go.
I've been to Corby's a few times too.
Okay, well, Rudy will be here, so you should definitely make the trip in. It's going to be great. And then, of course, our holiday party in December 11th.
Yeah, I definitely have to check that out. And you didn't, I was at your MWFA Fastener Week last month. No, 2 months ago already.
2 months now.
You did a great job with that, and looks like you got the plans in place for a good one to celebrate 80 years.
We hope so. We hope that everybody, and we're trying to reach out to other associations now and try to collaborate with them, because it's a big deal. 80 years is a big deal, and we want everybody in the industry to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I have to come check out Rudy or meet Rudy.
Yeah,
have you met him?
I've never met him. No,
and
I'm not really a Notre Dame fan, but
all right. Well, I am.
Beside the point.
I'll make up for you.
There you go. We'll put you up front and center.
Yeah, and I have a friend who played football with him. He was not a starter either, but he said that I think he had to mentor Rudy a little bit.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, well, you definitely need to come in. You can talk to him about that.
Yeah, so good. So you got a lot going on at Abbott-Interfast, Abbott Metalworks, as well as the MWFA. So good job with all that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Definitely keeping me on my toes.
Good. All right. Anything else you want to wrap up with?
No, I think we're good. Appreciate being on the broadcast again, and looking forward to doing it again in the future, but not the very near future. As I've told Eric, super busy and we got a lot of things going on, but always happy to jump on with you.
Yeah, keep crunching the numbers, watching the industry, making fasteners, and making things happen with the association.
It's a blast. Definitely a blast.
Good. Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time, and we'll see you at the next industry event.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, Bob. That was Abbott-Interfast President Bob Baer. The FDI number for September 2025 was 55.8 versus 51.3 in August. Visit FDIsurvey.com to participate in the process and get a detailed PDF copy of Baird's monthly analysis. Now for today's top story. 7 months after an explosive fire at SPS Technologies factory in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania, the company unveiled its plans to rebuild. The factory caught fire on February 17, 2025, as multiple explosions were reportedly heard throughout the facility. Officials said at least 60 employees were inside of the building at the time. They were evacuated and accounted for, and no injuries were reported. And on September 25th, 2025, the company met with the community to share its plans for building a new factory. The new state-of-the-art facility, intended to be operational in 2028, will be approximately 350,000 square feet, including office space. Operations at the facility will include environmental controls for the protection of air, water, and soil, and SPS's team members will use the latest technology and automation to manufacture industry-leading fasteners used in aerospace and other industries worldwide. SPS Technologies is a leading developer, manufacturer, and global supplier of aerospace nuts, bolts, and associated products with 20 major product lines. Founded in Jenkintown in 1903 as Standard Press Steel Company, later becoming SPF Technologies and now branded as PCC Fasteners SPS Jenkintown, the company has been developing and manufacturing critical fasteners since the early days of aviation. SPS Technologies was acquired by PCC in 2003. You can see renderings of the new facility on page 1 of the October 20th Fastener News Report newsletter, as well as on the PowerPoint slides on the SPS Community and Meeting and Presentation website section available online at spsupdates.com. Next up, today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In corporate news, Riverspan Partners acquired United Titanium. Optimus lost a new quick ship manufacturing program. Hodel Natco Industries acquired Merit Fasteners. Grauer Metal celebrated 75 years with an open house. Rotorclip won a Caterpillar Supply Award. Nefco opened a new branch in South Carolina. A. Raymond acquired Facile. Packer Fastener opened a new hub in Mississippi. Bufab signed a framework agreement with Babcock International Group, and it acquired Novia Group. Whitecap acquired Advanced Forming Solutions and Anchor Construction Industrial Products, and Essentra lost a new range of Peak plastic fasteners. In personnel news, Mallory Nichols of Advanced Components was elected president of the Pacific West Fastener Association, also known as PAC West. Bufab appointed Marcus Soderberg as CFO. Routwasher announced Ian Van Handel as its new president and CEO. Century Fasteners de Mexico hired Saul Pedraza Gomez as regional sales manager. Bolton Nutt in the UK welcomed Nick March to the team as operations director. Linfast Solutions Group, also known as LSG, named Nick Namaker to VP Corporate Strategy. And Brighton Best International announced Larry Unger as the new national sales manager for the BBI Construction Division. You can get details on all of these stories and more in Fastener Technology International magazine and the Fastener News Report monthly newsletter, both available online at fastenertech.com. Now let's turn to the back page to talk about industry events. Congratulations to the producers and participants of the recently completed MWFA Fastener Week 25 and the International Fastener Expo 2025, also known as IFE 2025, in Las Vegas, Nevada. Fastener Technology International magazine was on hand for both events as an exhibitor and supporter, and I am pleased to report that each was well executed and well attended. In addition, both were filled with great content and exhibits, as well as many special events for networking and relationship building. Some nice images from the shows can be found on nearly 20 pages of coverage in the October-November 2025 issue of Fastener Technology International magazine. Common discussion points at each event included tariffs and trade, AI, data and digital transformation, mergers and acquisitions, technical fundamentals and innovations, economic outlooks and planning difficulties, as well as labor and talent challenges. I saw and heard lots of good things in Lincolnshire and Las Vegas, and you can read highlights from my show notes on page 8 of the October-November edition of Fastener Technology International magazine. Outside of the exhibits, which are always great, other high points were the introduction and acceptance speeches for the IFE Awards, the Industrial Fastener Institute session at Fastener Week 25, the Jackpot Marketing Session in Las Vegas, hosted by Rosa Hearn of Brighton Best International and Joe Shoemaker of AFC Industries, and the networking opportunities, including private ones hosted by Brighton Best International, Optimus, and Fully Threaded Radio. Plans are underway for the next version of these well-known industry events, and both are heading to new venues in 2026. As noted earlier, MWFA will celebrate its 80th anniversary next year by taking its Fastener Week show on the road to Chicago's Navy Pier, and the International Fastener Expo will head 300 miles southeast to Phoenix for IFE's first staging of what may someday be known as the Arizona Fastener Show or the Phoenix Fastener Show. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report. Please send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
Goebel Fasteners increases efforts to maintain its reputation as the leading rivet source with a large inventory of parts and expedited delivery options. We have over $10 million worth of global inventory at stock at all times and pride ourselves on same-day or next-day shipping options that are available to all our customers. Goebel Fasteners, the leading rivet source.
Hello, everyone. This is Carmen Vertullo with your Fastener Training Minute, coming to you from Carver Labs in beautiful El Cajon, California, and from the Fastener Training Institute. Today's topic comes from a question that came to our exhibit when we were at the International Fastener Expo in Las Vegas. And it was a very good question. A distributor actually came to us, and the question was, I have a customer that wants me to provide torque-to-yield bolts. I don't know what that is. Can you help me out with that? Well, that was an outstandingly good question, and we had a nice conversation about it. But I thought it was also a very informative topic and a great way for a fastener supplier to be able to bring value-added service to their customers who might need torque-to-yield fastening, or let's call it something else. Let's call it tighten-to-yield fastening. And if you understand that concept, then you'll be able to help the customer out. So when we return, I'm going to tell you all I know, at least, about what we generically call torque-to-yield fastening.
You hear that? Your line is speaking to you. It's asking you a question. Are we good enough? Is good enough good enough? Are we delivering the best possible solution? Will what we make stand the test of time? Can we be bigger, faster, safer, smarter? Can we get what we need before we need it? Can we increase production? Can we be more precise? Can we work day and night for weeks on end? Can we create what's never been done? Yes, we can. Let's discover your worth.
Solution Man, Ken.
Solution Man, you're my fastener hero.
Just doing my job, ma'am.
SOLUTION, SOLUTIO. Solution Industry. We are solution.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute. Today, we're talking about torque-to-yield fastening, or torque-to-yield bolts, if you will. And there's a little bit of nuance here and several different levels where this technology or concept matters. And I'm going to start with the most obvious one. When we talk about torque-to-yield, the object of the game is to tighten the fastener down until it experiences permanent deformation. That is yield. It's beyond the elastic zone, and now it's in what's called the plastic zone. And that bolt will never go back to the way it was because it's now stretched permanently. Why would we want to do that? That sounds kind of like a dangerous thing. Well, if the bolted joint is designed for torque to yield and the bolt is designed for torque to yield, then it actually is a very safe thing. And there are a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is because it's a gigantic target. It's very easy to hit yield and know you're in yield versus some specific torque value or some specific tension. Well, how do we know when we're in yield? Well, the first way we know, or the best way we know, is because we've done an experiment with the bolting beforehand. We put the bolting in some kind of a tension measuring device like a Skidmore Wilhelm bolt tension calibrator, and we've tightened it down either using torque or angle or a combination of those things. And we watch the needle go up, and where the needle stops going up, we've kind of gotten into yield already. So we know that we've hit the maximum capability of the fastener to go beyond its elastic limit. And that gives us the information we need to know what torque to yield is. So now that we've got that piece of information, we can take that back to the application, which must be a rigid joint, by the way. That's another thing that we want to know, is make sure that we have a rigid joint. And we use that torque developed from the experiment in the installation. Now, we have to do that more than once. You have to do it a couple of times. You kind of have to have a little bit on the ball to know that you haven't gone too far beyond yield. You actually would base it on the yield strength of the specification of the fastener, not the actual yield strength of the fastener. So it's a specified yield strength. So we know when we've gotten there. One of the reasons to do this, or the primary reason to do it, in addition to that it's a nice, big, juicy, easy to hit target, is that it allows us to take the maximum strength of the bolt and put it to use in the joint, the maximum safe strength, let's say. And this actually happens very commonly in structural bolting, not necessarily intentionally, but oftentimes structural bolting does end up getting tightened into yield, and it's fine. There's no problem with that whatsoever. By the way, if you're into yield, the fastener is holding, it's going to hold, it's not going to lose any of its stretch. And if you were to go beyond it and to some unsafe level, the bolt would break. If the bolt doesn't break, you're somewhere in that big plastic zone beyond the elastic zone, you're in yield. And it could be as much as 20, 30, 40 degrees, maybe even 90 degrees of target that you can hit there in order to be into yield. So there are some other reasons to use torque to yield. Torque to yield can also be used as a method to determine what the safe torque would be without yielding. So to do that, we would use what's called an indicating torque wrench. That torque wrench will have a needle on it with a memory, and we simply tighten the bolt down or the screw or the nut, whatever we're tightening, until the needle stops moving forward. At that point, something is yielding. It could be the assembly. It could be the bolt itself. It could be the drive. There are lots of things that could be going on. The threads could be stripping, but we know that that's the maximum torque and therefore tension that that particular joint can handle. Then we do that maybe 10 times, maybe 30, depending upon how much experimental accuracy we want. And we take the average of those numbers of readings, and our installation torque will be some percentage of that. If all of our readings were very similar and very tight and well grouped together, we call that good scatter or low scatter, then we can probably use a fairly high percentage, 80 or 90%. If the readings are a little bit all over the place, then we would use a lower percentage, maybe like 50 to 75%. In the particular application that came by with the question at our exhibit, the application was engine head bolts, the bolts that hold the head on your internal combustion engine. And that's a very common application for torque to yield, and there's a good reason to use it there. One is it's a very well-designed bolted joint, very rigid. Plus, we have very long bolts. Those bolts go through the head, through the cylinders, and into the engine block. And so they're generally going to be long, like 10 inches long, maybe half-inch diameter. And they're generally going to be flange bolts. They got great flange heads on them, very good bearing surfaces. Everything's flat. Everything is level. So it's a well-designed bolted joint, just perfectly suited for torque to yield. The threads on the bolt are going into tapped holes in the engine block, not into nuts. That's a very good thing for torque to yield. And it gives us what we need, maximum use of all the strength of the bolt. Now, one very important consideration we have to consider whenever torque to yield is one of our strategies is we cannot reuse that bolt. That bolt must be tossed. So you want to be careful if you're rebuilding an engine, for example, and those head bolts have been torqued to yield, that you would not want to reuse them. Now, I think torque to yield is one of those things that can really help a supplier to inform their customer, not just if they want a torque to yield, but if they want to know what the maximum safe torque is, on how to figure that out. The important thing, though, is to, as you educate or inform your customer, that you make sure you don't add a liability or a risk to your company because you told them something. So there's plenty of good literature out there on torque to yield. Find a good magazine article or use AI or something and tell them about the concept, but be careful that they know that you are not recommending this for any particular application. And it's always their responsibility from an engineering perspective to know if it is wise. And if that doesn't help you out, you need more help, you can always call me at Carver Labs, our website, carverem.com, and we'll be happy to help you or your customer directly to put to use the wonderful technology in bolting called torque to yield. Well, this has been Carmen Vertullo with your Fastener Training Minute. Thank you for listening, and we hope you learned something.
This is Jake Valdez Davis with BTM Manufacturing, and you are listening to Mi Amigos, Brian and Eric, on Fully Threaded Radio.
It's feature segment time. Jim Jordan is purchasing manager at Stelfast. Previously in his career, he spent a good chunk of it with Porteous Fasteners. And during that time, he worked with the legendary Bruce Darling, who sadly passed away in August of this year. During this conversation, Jim recounts some of his experiences working with Bruce, some of the things he learned, and he also explains some of the things that he carries with him today during his fastener career. Here's this conversation with Jim Jordan. Jim, thank you for being here.
Glad to make it. Thanks, sir.
I was talking to you at Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and I know I gave you a little bit of a of a pep talk on jumping on here with me. You're not really the most avid public speaker, but I very much appreciate you coming on here to talk with me today a little bit, especially when we get into talking about our mentor, Bruce Darling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the timing was perfect because that was just after Tim Vath accepted the Young Fastener Professional and said, just say yes, basically, and don't say no to things. So timing was perfect for that.
Yeah, good point. I really got a lot of inspiration out of this year's acceptance speeches, and Tim did a wonderful job. You go far back with Tim Vath too, don't you? Because after your stint at Porteous, you went over to Solution, and that's how you wound up with the Linfast Solutions Group, where you still find yourself today as purchasing manager of Stelfast, formally. That's the title.
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So yeah, I had the pleasure of getting to know Tim early on once I got acquainted with Solution through Frank DeVito, another old Porteous guy that kind of moved on and reached out to me once Solution was looking at the importing side of their business and presented me with the opportunity to join the company at that point.
So another name that comes into recent history, I was fishing around for somebody to help me understand what's going on, especially in light of all of the tumult with the tariffs and everything. And in a conversation, and it was with Frank DeVito, again, several months ago, I was saying, what we really could use is a guy like Bruce Darling, who used to give these unbelievable presentations. I first saw him at the Pac West many years ago, and he went all the way to the very beginning of the supply chain, from digging the coke out of the ground.
Yeah,
he knew every facet of the industry, and then he would present that. There's nobody really doing that. Your name came up as somebody who might be someone filling those shoes today, at least as far as LSG goes.
Well, that's high praise from a good friend, and also learned a lot from Bruce. But man, his attention to detail and everything, I couldn't capture all that. But he was a great mentor of mine, a great friend, and a great person to learn from. Not only just the nuts and bolts, if you will, of it, but just how to handle situations, between importing and dealing with our supply base offshore, and what that means for relationships and just basically an overall broad view of not just the nuts and bolts again of the business, but how to conduct at that time the Porteous way of doing business, which really meant a lot to me. Again, family owned, as you know, and pretty well respected in the industry back then.
So at what stage in your career were you at Porteous when you were working with Bruce?
So I came actually from Janesville, Wisconsin, and had the opportunity. I worked for a company called Starline Fasteners for about 10 years that was acquired by Allied International and then Globe, and then some other transitions there. But before Porteous actually acquired Globe, after I transferred to California, I think that was roughly in 95 or 96. and basically was hired to do domestic purchasing for Porteous. And then over a few short months, there was a change on the importing side of the business, and I had that opportunity to kind of run with it with Bruce, kind of cheering me along the way to kind of pick up the opportunity and learn from him.
And formally, his position was Vice President of Materials Management.
Correct.
Over there at Porteous.
Correct. And I was basically hired as a buyer and then became purchasing manager, and then I believe at the end, director of procurement.
So he learned his way through the industry by making numerous international trips. I read somewhere that he visited over 425 factories overseas during those trips. Did you ever accompany him on any of those?
Yeah, I had the great pleasure of doing that, and again, he had a 3-ring binder that basically outlined or included the name of every factory and who was basically there at the time of those visits. So and that's probably an accurate number. I mean, Bruce was very active in procurement in trying to find new sources for us. So that number is probably pretty dead on, actually. So I started traveling with him. I think it was in '96 was my first trip. I was roughly 29 years old at the time. Hadn't really been out of Wisconsin, made the move to California. So, and then within a few months of that move, I had to get my passport yet, had to learn a little bit more about our business. And then I hopped on a plane with Bruce and we started traveling. And I don't know how well you know Bruce or knew Bruce, Eric, but attention to detail, man. So he had itineraries down to the T of where we needed to be, who we were going to meet with, and basically a time frame and schedule. So everything was planned out, and I kind of modeled myself to some degree to that today, but not to the extent that Bruce had it down to laundry days and things like that. But again, he was just a great person to be around and a great person to learn from, and the knowledge and the respect he had in the business, not only internally within Porteous, but also with all of our suppliers. Was really a great position for a young guy to be around.
Oh, I can totally imagine that. And at the beginning of this discussion, I referred to Bruce Darling as a mentor of both of ours. Obviously, for you, he was highly impactful and you worked with him very, very closely. For me, it was very casual and I didn't get the honor of that. But what we did do in the early days of FCH was show him what we were trying to do. And I think I told you this also when we were in Vegas, Jim. He, for whatever reason, saw what we were trying to do at a very early stage, and Porteous was already working with us, and they'd given us some of your obsoletes or slow movers, and they'd had them on the network. We were also doing some things linking in SQL together. Bob Porteous was a big fan of that. He and Bob Reynolds were very strong advocates of that early connection,
Right.
And so Bruce endorsed FCH Sourcing Network, did a YouTube video back in, I want to say like 2008, 2009, right after we launched. And we knew that it was a big deal because I kind of had an idea about what kind of a name he was, but I had really, over the years, it sank in and I never forgot that. And so we always maintained a very warm relationship, even though it was a little distant compared to certainly what you would have experienced.
Oh, that's awesome. That just sounds like him, always willing to help out and seeing where all this stuff can lead, right?
Yeah, we were deeply honored on that. So getting back to your travels then, I heard him quip about some of the experiences you had at some of the dinners and things like that, a lot of off-the-wall stuff. And he came across always as a very homespun kind of a guy. So what was it like? He was kind of sly as a fox, wasn't he?
Oh, very much, a big, larger than life human, even appearance wise and things like that. And just very open and accepting to anything that was kind of presented, because you never know what we were going to be basically confronted with to some extent when we're traveling over there. So again, this is the early years. So, the late 90s, and you look at the comparison to Asia today compared to back then, there is really, in my mind, there is no comparison because everything's modernized today. Back in those days, it was dirt roads. There was no freeway, there was no highway, pollution, things of that nature. And he was very open to that travel, knowing it's going to be rough and a tough way to go. But the best way for us to get to know our suppliers were to physically visit them, right, and not always have them come to the States. And so he definitely understood the importance of travel. And I think when we were doing it, we were traveling probably 3 times a year over there. So that was very, very fun, very exhausting because those trips can be very grueling. But the experiences, are unmatched. The people that we have the opportunity to meet, know, and learn from, and the factory visits, and then getting to know the families, because everything was family based basically back then. And again, Porteous being a family company, that was just natural, and it was fantastic. And the dinners, oh my gosh, just the experiences of being around a table with these factory owners and experiencing the way that they communicate with their staff and or their coworkers and everything else. And it was extreme. I mean, a lot of alcohol, not shy in saying that. Part of the reason I think I got hired by Porteous was, again, being a kid from Wisconsin, I could drink some beer. So I think that was a key point. Those days are gone, Eric. I cannot drink like I used to, unfortunately, but my wife is happy about that. So, but yeah, I mean, just incredible opportunities to travel. I remember one of the first trips, if not the first trip, we experienced in China, and we visited a hot nut factory, and it was all coal back then, and very dirty and gritty and pretty intense, as far as the way that working atmosphere was. And then we had the opportunity to have lunch with the factory director, which happened to be at his home, which was very unique and kind of cool. And his wife and son did some cooking, and the food was fantastic. Basically, the table setting was chopsticks, obviously, which was a new experience. Just a quick segue on that. Before I started traveling, Bruce basically instructed me, I guess, of buying a pair of chopsticks and practicing with peanuts, and make sure I could maneuver the utensils properly. And so that was a huge help as we're sitting at dinner, because basically we had one plate per person and one bowl per person in your chopsticks. So food was presented, you put it in the bowl or the plate, you eat it. You want to kampai, have some beer, then you have to finish your bowl, put the beer in the bowl, and cheers with that. And that kind of repeated throughout the night. And we again, it's in a small local town, and we were in the garage, basically a garage atmosphere. So it was outdoors, and we were carrying on, as it got later, drinking a lot and having a lot of great food and conversation. But look behind me, and there's like 20 people from the town just kind of observing us, and that was odd. It was great. It was strange. It felt, we were the entertainment for that city or that town for that evening, because Bruce and I were pretty large people. So I think that was something for them to lay witness to. But then to see us carrying on with all the drinking and the laughter and everything, I think left them with a lifetime. I hope left me with one of my core memories for work, I guess, is that experience and what it all meant to be together, break bread, meet family, discuss business, of course, and just get to know each other at a different level personally.
So he advised you on the finer points of the social graces, and then provided all the opportunities. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I owe everything to Bruce and the Porteous family, taking the chance for me from again leaving Wisconsin to get to California and have this great basically career from there, rolling the dice with me.
Well, it was a model that worked for Porteous for a long time, wasn't it? They made a lot of very close relationships, brought in a lot of material from just the right suppliers. It seemed it worked for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely relationship driven. We had to take care of our customers. We had to buy quality. Learned a lot about quality through Bruce and another name from my past, Bill King. He's instrumental in the quality of Porteous at the time. So Bill and I had the pleasure of traveling together as well, and really understood the importance of quality and basically working hand in hand with the factories to make sure that they were producing the parts to the specification, and any nuances that we could add to the production, we were eager to share that with them.
Where did Bruce pick up all of his technical knowledge?
Reading, I think quite a bit, and his before Fortius, he was at RB&W and/or Bosco, and I don't know if he got a lot of his technical side there, but he could read and retain. Again, another quality that was never transferred to me from him, but he just retained information.
And we take so much for granted these days because we have the internet, so we have so many information sources at our fingertips. But he must have been on the phone continuously with all his overseas contacts because he was always up to date on what was going on. And not just at the surface level either. He understood deeply into the supply chain.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely, again, I think he enjoyed that part of the business of life too, of learning more. And again, at that time, China was still relatively new because of transformation from Taiwan to China and investments happening in China. And he knew a lot of the people through trading companies or what it may be, and just kept those connections going and just learned basically, again, the business on a Chinese standpoint.
Give us a feel for what the energy was like over at Porteous during that period, because it was a huge name in the industry. It seemed like at the time it would never go away, of course,
right?
As heydays always seem, But you were there with a very interesting group of people, and there are a lot of Porteous alums still in the industry today. I'm sure you could name a bunch of them off, and they're still very prominent people in the industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were lucky. We had a lot of great people across the country. Porteous was growing. Again, the main focus was customer service and taking care of the customer and making sure that we had the right items that they needed at the time. And again, a family-owned business, and they enjoyed that part of it. And Barry and Bob, I believe you knew pretty well yourself, and they were very good people and good businessmen. And again, we had a training ground for a lot of great people. Some are still with LSG today, and others are still within the industry. But I think the reputation of Porteous and what it stood for was first-class service, right? That was the motto. So whatever it took to get first-class service to the customer, and we viewed that on the supply chain side, that had to equal, make sure that we were able to have good relationships and understandings with the suppliers to meet the expectations of our customers. So to me, it worked hand in hand.
So ultimately, Porteous was acquired by Brighton in 2013. And I believe Bruce pulled way back at that point, right? And you continued to have interaction with him, though, I'm guessing.
Correct. So I left prior to right at 2013, early 2013. And then he stayed on and worked remotely, I believe. At that time, he may have been in Nevada, and was still working for BBI, doing whatever they asked for him. But I think the responsibilities did kind of dwindle for him.
So what was it like these last few years with Bruce? Did he still reach out occasionally, or was he still available to mentor you a little bit?
I'll throw this out there for everyone. Yes, he was there. He the problem is how life is. You kind of get busy and you put I'll call him tomorrow type of thing, right? I just recommend for anyone, don't do that. You never know when that opportunity is going to be gone. Take advantage when you're thinking about to reach out to that friend or loved one, because again, time goes by so quickly. We all kind of get wrapped up in the day to day, but it's important to take that step back and appreciate those relationships, friendships that you've built along the way. So I regret to say I didn't have as much contact as I would have liked as I separated from Porteous and made my next move. That being said, I did have the opportunity to talk with Bruce about a week before he passed. He called me. We'd stayed in touch, email and things like that, but he reached out and we had a great heart-to-heart talk for probably about 20 minutes that I'll never forget. A lot of laughter, a lot of the old days, a lot of the great stories, a lot of the stuff about Porteous, obviously, and some of the experiences that we shared together. And it was, again, something I'll never forget. And I just really treasured the fact that he thought about me there towards the end.
You're so true, Jim, about keeping in touch with people, and it does require work. And I'm so glad that you were able to have that last interaction. That's just great. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So you're doing similar things these days with the LSG group. Of course, as I said, formally, your title is purchasing manager for Stelfast, but you do these presentations internally and keep everybody up to speed on what's happening with the supply chain. Is that kind of a formal type of a thing, or are you just really the informal go-to guy that everybody knows has a clear picture of what's going on?
It's kind of shared formally, informally, if that makes any sense. We do have some meetings that we too talk about, and we kind of share what's happening in the market. It's just we try to be as in front of our internal team as much as possible to share what's happening with the market, especially with the craziness, as we all know, with the tariffs right now and in the uncertainty that leads for everyone or has led for everyone. And I guess my only real comment on that would be that, it's a level playing field. Everyone's dealing with the same thing in real time. So we just have to react to the best we can on that type of situation.
Well, what are you focused on right now? There's so much. Where are you personally concentrating your focus?
Well, again, a lot on obviously the procurement side, and diversifying any kind of supply base as much as we can, and just staying again in tune with the suppliers of watching the advancement within the current supply base and what they're able to do and accomplish. Had the opportunity to travel Asia again this April. And the transformation from pre-COVID for me, and then after COVID was like from, I think, maybe 2019-ish was my last trip. And then we just started again last April, this last April. And to see the growth that happened in those years, those 5 years or whatever it was incredible to see how automated the factories have gotten and how, I guess, focused on quality they are. And that the compliance issues are never ending. So they're staying in step with all of that as well. So, so that's kind of what my focus is helping still broaden the supply chain, but still don't lose fact of the great suppliers that we currently do have.
You mentioned supply chain diversification. And of course, a lot of people are thinking the same thing, Jim. But as you said, we're all faced with this same problem, the same challenge. In terms of supply chain diversification, can you drill into that any more? Is there anything specifically that you see happening that you could share with us?
Well, we all hear about, some of the newer countries, or I shouldn't say newer countries, but some of the countries that are becoming maybe more active in fastener production, from Malaysia to Vietnam to Thailand, India, of course. But, with this tariff situation, to kind of dovetail back into that a little bit, I mean, it's impossible, I believe, or very challenging to supplant the China tonnage, that's the production capacity that's currently available to basically pick that up and move it to another country.
Okay. Well, supply chain diversification is high on everybody's list, and I get why you can't get into lots of specifics on that, but it's an undeniable fact right now. Well, let's circle back to talking about some Bruce stories. So you and Bruce, as it turns out, used to carpool over to Porteous back in the day, and you had somebody else with you too, and that was a major that made a major impact on your young fastener career.
Well, it really, really did. And the other person was Dick Kleppe, who was, I think, operations manager, inventory control manager. I should say inventory control manager. And he came over from RB&W or Bosco as well, around the same time as Bruce, maybe a little time after that. But we all lived within 2 miles of each other, and we would carpool every morning, be ready by 5:45 in the morning, get to the office by 6:30. Beat the traffic and actually get some work done. And then basically coming back from one carpool trip after working all day, after we decided that, my passport had cleared and all that good stuff. And we're planning our first trip to Asia. And I'm sitting in the back seat of Bruce's car and got a half sheet of paper and a pencil. And at that time it was dark and couldn't see anything. And planning the trip, and Jim, write this down, and he's naming off these names I've never heard of before and trying to guess the spelling and who the people are and things like that. And not to mention the backseat of the car with a, bumpy road and all that good stuff. But so we planned our first trip basically within 30 minutes. And he had, like I said earlier, with his attention to detail on itinerary, this was all penned out once we got back to the office, and we started making the connections of who we're going to meet, when we're going to see them, who we're going to share dinner with, who we're going to share lunch with, and just got it going. So those car trips were phenomenal. Never stop, talking. Whoever drove that week, so it was a week session between each driver, and Bruce would have KFI on, drive me crazy. I already have K-Rock on, driving him crazy. So, and then Dick was pretty mellow. He just wanted the wave. So it was just, 3 different personalities, but we all got along really, really well. And, again, at the time, you think, oh, my God, is this ever going to end? And then now, again, as you reflect back, you wish it never would have ended, Just great time, great people, great memories.
Was he a good driver?
Heavy brake. We never got in an accident. So, yes, I guess we survived it. So, yeah.
Yeah, those LA freeway systems are notorious.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, the first week or month that we were there, when my family and I moved there, it did nothing but rain. And of course, thinking, well, where's this Southern California weather and sunshine and stuff? And it never came. But eventually we got there. But, first talk about driving on the freeways, driving a big van from Porteous that, I was getting from A to B from, and not knowing where I was going, and at that time, Thomas guides, right? So it was a nightmare. But again, survived it, so that's all good.
And setting up those trips at that time was no picnic either, considering there was no net, no cell phones, nothing. It was quite different than it is today.
Yeah.
So, a lot of legwork had to go into making those trips, all those plans.
And to make them go off, because a lot can happen between that, especially in those days. And again, with the road conditions and everything else, and transportation as it was, with flights that could change and things of that nature. So, yeah, pretty remarkable.
So what do you carry with you today that you attribute to the training that you received under Bruce, or at least his mentorship? I mean, what's one of the biggest skills that you continue to use to this day?
I would have to say the vendor relationship, getting to know the vendors, getting to appreciate what they do, learn from them, and help teach them along the way too, the way of the LSG way. So, basically just communication, always try to be available to answer any question and be involved with what each factory is doing.
Well, that's a very good legacy to carry forward. I'm sure he would be very proud, and we were very fortunate to have known him.
Yeah, absolutely. Great man, great family.
Jim, I sure do appreciate you sharing a few of your reminiscences. I know, once again, you're not you don't relish public speaking, but I knew that you would do a great job of giving everyone a little thumbnail about Bruce Darling. He'll be missed.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And again, as you mentioned, as we started talking about the stories, it kind of just came. So hopefully, didn't bore your listeners too much, but it meant a lot to me to kind of share a little bit about Bruce and kind of our time together.
Hey, maybe next time we'll do a little bit more of an expanded reminiscence on the vibe over there at Porteous. I'm sure you've got a lot of good Bob and Barry stories to share, as well as a few others from some of the other characters that came out of there.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of great characters, a lot of great friends today too. So again, it was a pleasure for me to make that move from Wisconsin to California. And again, I appreciate Bruce and the Porteous family giving me that opportunity to get me to where I am today.
The fastener industry has taken a lot of people on interesting trips. Jim Jordan with the LSG Group, you're no exception. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it, Eric. Thank you very much.
And we'll be back with more Fully Threaded in just a second.
Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. Star quality is more than products. It's simple. We're Star.
From thousands of in-stock fasteners, including NAS and MS hardware, the custom parts built to your specifications, MW Components delivers. With U.S. manufacturing across 8 locations, we offer cold heading, precision machining, fully custom solutions, and engineering support for challenging applications. From rapid prototyping to full production, we deliver the capabilities and scale for your most demanding needs. Learn more at mwcomponents.com/fasteners.
Looking for premium aluminum fastening solutions? Brighton Best International has partnered with Aluminum Fasteners to bring you an expanded lineup of top quality aluminum nuts, hex bolts, cap screws, flat washers, and split lock washers, all available and stocked nationwide. Engineered for excellence in solar, railway, electrical, and transportation industries, our aluminum fasteners offer lightweight strength, corrosion resistance, and lasting durability. Need something custom? Our mill department is ready to help. Find unbeatable fastening solutions at brightonbest.com. Tested, tried, and true. We are Brighton Best.
This is a traveling salesman at Fastener Talk, fastenerblog.net, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you on the online Fastener Party Bungalow to close out another one. Have you talked much to Jim Jordan, Bri?
No, I have not.
I hadn't either, really. Talked to him a bit in Vegas because I was thinking about how to put this segment together, and I really had to convince him. He's a very soft-spoken, modest kind of a guy, you know. He doesn't really like the limelight. I'm so glad that he was able to jump on and share his remembrances of Bruce Darling.
I am too.
Fortunately for the industry, Bruce passed on a lot of his wisdom. Jim carries that forward. I know he helps a lot of people at LSG and in the industry, so very good to have him with us today, and hopefully he'll be back.
Right. There are a lot of notables in this industry, and many of them are sort of hidden.
That's true. It's our ongoing mission to bring some of these voices to the forefront. But on today's episode, in addition to Jim Jordan of the LSG Group, I'd like to thank Bob GQ Baer, who sat in with the intrepid Mike McNulty today on the Fastener News Report, Parker Jensen with Atlas Distribution, IFI Chairman Larry Spelman, Marco Rodriguez with Cresa, and of course, Carmen Vertullo with the Fastener Training Minute. Appreciate it, everyone. We also appreciate our supporters and partners as we produce and build the podcast, the FCH Sourcing Network, the Fastener Distributor Index, and data cleansing scrubber software, especially now as we're bringing it into the AI world. See, Bri, I had to throw that in.
Oh, I thought you were going to leave that out completely.
It's the age we live in. Our partners make it all possible. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Star Stainless, Global Fasteners, and Brighton Best International. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Cresa, Endries International, InSequel Software, J-Land Franco, MW Components, Fastener Technology International, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. Please let us know what you think. If you have questions, suggestions, you want to ask Brian for some bourbon suggestions, the email address, ftr@fullythreaded.com. What is your favorite bourbon anyway, Bri?
Well, actually, it's a bourbon that we got from a distillery. It's not sold in Illinois. I think it's called Cinder and Smoke. It's aged about 16 years, and it's beautiful bourbon.
16 years. What is it about that? My favorite scotch was Lagavulin, aged 16 years.
Right, but it's very unusual for the bourbons and American whiskeys to be aged that long. They usually age them for like 6 or 7 years.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a lot shorter normally.
Yeah. And when I first went to the first time I ever went to the distillery, Maker's Mark Distillery, I asked them why they didn't offer or try aging it longer. And they said, why? I said, because it would taste better. They said, no one will pay for it. So that's the answer.
Time and money, Bri, runs everything.
True.
And if you're in the fastener game, it's not just time and money, it's also inventory.
Right.
To close it out here, I went back in the archives of globalfastenernews.com, found an article that John Walsh wrote back in 2001. He was covering what was then the Western Fastener Association. Bruce Darling was a presenter there, and he was talking about inventory. The topic of his speech, think of inventory as money off your bottom line. Now, when I came across this, I immediately realized, Bri, why he was so prepared to embrace the FastenersClearinghouse.com FCH Sourcing Network mission.
and years earlier before other people were even thinking about it, really.
He gave a lot of ideas in this presentation, but just zeroing in on one aspect of it that a lot of people probably will identify, he suggested categorizing your excess inventory into 3 groups. First one was what he called lump, which is A or B items, which you just have too much stock of. They're excess, but you'll likely sell them. The second group is the slow-moving stock. So you've got sales, but action needs to be taken to sell them or get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third is the obsolete items. Those are going at such a rate that they take several years to clear out, and they need aggressive action.
Right. And we've dealt with all of those classifications.
Oh, yes. And it only took us a little while to realize that most of the people who list inventory on FCH have a mix, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that gets listed is the A and B stuff. So it's not a surplus or a dead inventory site only. There is quite a bit, but the people who are looking for inventory are just looking for stuff. You know, they're doing spot buys, they're doing gap buys, as some people call it. But this is all a part of the ecosystem. Anyway, Bruce Darling knew what the carrying costs of inventory are. And on the listing side, that was why he was so adamant that putting your stuff on FCH is the biggest no-brainer in the fastener industry, which we're very grateful for.
Yes.
So I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jim Jordan today. And we're very grateful that you clicked into the podcast. As always, if you're a new listener, there are plenty of archives back there that you can catch up on. And maybe you've been itching to get your message out too. Give us a shout. And that's going to put this episode of Fully Threaded Radio in the can.
And if you're really worried, the lunar rover was packed up into a compressed box and maneuvered out of the lunar excursion module and spring-loaded, so it would all spring out into the shape it was. It was a small box about, 4 feet, something like that, by 4 feet.
We'll get Karabasi in here from MW Components. She's our resident spring expert. She'll verify the validity of all that, Bri. What do you say?
I'll be happy if someone explain it to me.
That'll be coming up on a future Fully Threaded Radio. For now, for Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws. We'll talk to you next time.
Right. See you next time, folks.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.